Hello. Hi, guys. Happy Monday. Is it Monday? Is it Monday? So, yeah, I don't know. I was complaining about the weather, just saying. Yesterday it was like 75 degrees, and today it was snowing. So we woke up freezing because I had the air on. Uh, so, hope everybody's having a good night. Glad to see you here, if you're here. Hi, Ray. So, tonight, guys, we're going to touch on a few things, as clearly there is so much going on right now. We're going to get into Sue Peters and John Bray video breaking down the confident play-by-play of how Charlie was killed, the lies we're being told with this war, PPUSA seemingly always involved with pastors accused of bad acts. After tonight, I think we should have a good understanding of how Fort Huachuca entered into all this, also getting into just how much control It's Real has over our country. Like I said, there is just so much. I'm Cindy. Let's unravel this disgust together. So, unless you live in a bubble or willingly choose to not be informed on what's going on in our country and this world, then y'all must be feeling a lot like everyone about now. Disgusted, concerned. Me personally, sad, mad. Don't like seeing a girls' school in Iran hit by the United States, and all they say in response is bad intel. That was what, 156-ish innocent, mostly kids. I think that we are being censored for many reasons, but for one, they want us getting our information from the mainstream media, which they control the narrative and clearly lie their asses off. This is all out of control and was all for what? In my opinion, allegedly. Keep BB out of jail longer. And of course, his power trip. Not sure how the president would think it's okay and that we as the people that voted him in are okay with being lied to and manipulated for the sake of Israel. This is sick. You hear the president get asked how the war is going and he says, "Good." Like, no, it's not. In my opinion, you wrote a check your ass can't cash because Bibi wants to control the world. I'm sick of everything I go on. I see nothing but you either agree with this in full or you're anti-Semitic. Charlie stopped this war and paid for his disloyalty with his life. Not even 6 months after his death, we are in deep. I think people are really starting to get just how screwed up this government is, in my opinion, allegedly, and I'm not suicidal. It's like we are living in a really bad soap opera. Our Constitution, in my opinion, is being violated. This country needs a serious change in power like never before, or we continue down this same path of corruption. Total wipeout of the FBI, CIA, DHS. It's not okay to create false flags at the cost of human lives, be it here or anywhere. It's not okay for the FBI, CIA to get online and target our kids and create patsies, in my opinion, allegedly. This country was living fine with all different people from different places. You don't get to come here and force us to believe you're God's chosen people. Go be that in Israel. Last time I checked, we were free to have whatever religion and not look down on people or feel superior because you think you're God's chosen people. I'm sorry if this offends anyone, but that's absurd. It's making people crazy. It has to stop. In what scenario does it play out that we all in the world agree that the Jews are God's chosen people and therefore above us and we should bend a knee to them? I'm going to stop here. And we're just going to get into all the good stuff we've seen. Hi, Trina. Oh, gosh, it's a question of where to start because there is like literally so much. Start here. So this is Glenn Greenwald and Tucker Carlson,
which is supposed to be the opposition party. I think that also contributes to a reason why there's not a lot of nationwide protests. You need leaders to do it. But again, I think the big issue was it just came out of nowhere. You know, it wasn't like the Iraq War or other wars where you had time to protest. You just woke up one day and there was a True Social post from Trump in the middle of the night announcing the war, and then there was the war.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And so, like so many of these changes, it was unheralded. It just happened. So, just back to the speech question. I know there was a not famous enough moment where the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, who's I think been a pretty good governor in some ways, but traveled to Israel to sign what looked like hate speech laws that are applicable in Florida. Is that a mischaracterization? Some of his supporters denied that it actually happened. Did it actually happen? And what does it mean?
It did actually happen. He actually went to Israel twice to sign laws in Israel that applied to people in Florida. The first one was kind of benign and had some connection to Israel. The second one, though, which was in, I believe, 2022, when he was gearing up to run for the Republican primary nomination, a big part of what the strategy was they were going to get, and they did get, most of the hardcore fanatical Zionist groups and pro-Israel activist types and pundit types. They lined up not behind Trump, but behind Ron DeSantis, and that was very much a part of his strategy, was currying favor with this crowd. Which, okay, that's, you know, what people do in politics. To go to, and I don't want to completely mischaracterize the law because there is some, you can overstate it, but it absolutely was a law that took certain speech and prescribed it, not for the people in Israel, but for the people in Florida. And it was about funding hate speech programs. And again, only about anti Semitism in Israel. And he went to Israel in order to sign it. That was just true. I don't understand that either. You know, that was not something that provoked a lot of outrage. Why is he signing bills for the people in Florida in Israel when it actually can have the effect of confining or restricting the speech of the people in Florida in relation to Israel? It seems like he was siding with this foreign country over the citizens of the state that elected him.
It's, if nothing else, it's so humiliating.
So I don't live in Florida, but it is part of the United States and deeply concerning that DeSantis thinks he can go over there and sign anything that changes our constitutional rights. It's absurd. It's unacceptable. And nobody should be backing that. Nobody. This should really piss people off. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, living in Florida, and it's, trust me, it's coming for everybody. It apparently, I watched the entire video, and I encourage you to go watch the entire video. It's on the Tucker Carlson show. His name is Greenwald, whatever, Glenn, and he's Jewish. I'm just saying. Hi, son, Corey. I'm not gonna call you Steve. Hi, Corey. So yes, I encourage you to check this out because apparently Australia is being heavily affected as well, to the point of being locked up. People are being thrown in jail for shirts and clothing. And I mean, again, why? Why does this have to matter in other people's countries? And it probably would not be such a big deal if they weren't making it such a big deal. It never happened before. I mean, I don't recall in my lifetime Sure, people are ugly and say ugly things at certain times, but I don't recall this being an issue in my lifetime. I just don't.
Well, this is why the neocons so hated Charlie Kirk, because he saw this happening. And I remember you and I did an interview at my house this summer, and you explained a lot of your views on this topic on Israel, and were immediately, they leaked a tape to try to embarrass you. And one of the very first people to defend you in a heartfelt way was Charlie Kirk. And I was actually made me
Yep.
emotional watching it, because it was just so principled, and it was so not what you expect. And he did it at actual personal cost to do this, but he really meant it, because he could see that you and he, while you have differences, were basically seeing the same picture of the future of America, which is like, let's help the country. And they hated that. I never forget that as long as I live.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie and I have had a lot. Charlie was a super interesting,
Yes.
independent, subtle thinker. And I know everybody on the left, if you say anything good about Charlie Kirk, they're immediately going to get enraged. I don't really care at all. I think we are missing, like, not just emotionally, but very substantively and in a very compelling way, the presence of Charlie Kirk when it comes to this war and related issues. And I mean, he was very supportive of the Snowden reporting and free speech. We had a lot of that in common, but also this question. And I talked to him as he was evolving. And one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen, Tucker, was for a long time, Charlie Kirk was very pro-Israel, and he obviously started questioning that in all sorts of ways, to the point that he was refusing to deplatform you, even if it meant the loss of donors that in the millions of dollars, who didn't want anybody questioning Israel or criticizing Israel on the stage. And he went out in interviews, including on his own show, and a big one with Megyn Kelly, where they both said, what is going on here? Like, we need to start questioning this, but they try and make it so that you can't, because you'll have your reputation destroyed, because they will call you anti-Semites. And one of the things Megyn said that I really think was observant and perceptive was that Charlie represented younger conservatives, 18 to 32 or whatever the age group was. And overwhelmingly, they are turned against Israel. And he couldn't just be this hardcore fanatical pro-Israel champion. He had to acknowledge that the debate was opening, and had to open that debate. And when he did, he himself started not abandoning Israel, not becoming anti-Israel at all,
Right.
but clearly being skeptical of US support for it. And I will never forget that within seconds or minutes after he died, Benjamin Netanyahu was all over American media for that day, for hours, and then for days after, on every network he could find, talking about how Charlie was the most stalwart, devoted Israel loyalist that the United States has ever produced. And that was a very strange development, but it was also a very propagandistic one, to try and prevent people from remembering that even Charlie Kirk was having serious second thoughts about the whole Israel issue.
Well, he defended you. Really, at a moment where he did not need to say a word about that. You're traditionally a very famous man of the left. So it's not like he was not pandering to his own audience. Obviously, he was enraging his donors. They were already enraged with him. But there was just no reason for him to do that, other than heartfelt conviction.
Principle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt that was one of the bravest things I have ever seen in American politics. It was basically ignored, but I just want to say that out loud, because that revealed who he was. Like, in a moment, you could just stay silent and just not say anything. He stopped and said, I just want to say, Glenn Greenwald, while we disagree on some things, we have different orientations, he is a good man, and this is a political hit on him. And that was about Israel. I mean, I think that's why that hit happened, is because of Israel. But whatever the cause, he did that. And that tells you everything about what he was thinking at the time, and why he was so hated by the neocons. And to see them get up and be like, oh, here's my best friend. Okay, not true.
And that is exactly how they try to change history and skew the narrative. They try to get on top of it as soon as if you watch the videos collectively, then you know from watching Pastor Jack Hibbs announcing Charlie Kirk being hit at UVU. He says it in his video as it's being released here in our country that he is in fact dead, that Bibi Netanyahu had already came out and said that Charlie Kirk was killed. How? That's it seems odd. Nobody's questioning that. How does that happen? Unless, that was the plan, which I think, was the plan. Sadly. And then let's see. This. And I'm doing this because Tucker is getting hit hard as hell right now. If you don't know, I mean, he's really catching it. He's had his phone infiltrated secretly without even knowing by the CIA. Just because some crazy person, and when I say crazy, she is crazy. I mean, she is. Decided that she was gonna report him. And they believed it? No, they just looked for a reason to get into his phone. They're terrified that Tucker is a threat of running for president, which he's never said, but he could. And he'd get it hands down.
Oh, that made me emotional. Made me emotional to see that. Susie Wiles had tears in her eyes, which you don't often see in politics, but it's real. This is the most unbelievable thing I think I've ever seen. And whatever happens next in America, I hope it's in this direction, because God is here and you can feel it. And Charlie would have loved this, not just because he loved large groups of people, but because ultimately he was a Christian evangelist. And it actually reminds me.
Does anybody here think that anything that's happening right now? I wonder if Tucker looks back at that. It was just 6 months ago. And thinks of how wrong he was going to be. Because it completely went south quick.
Of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it.
Absolutely.
And they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about, what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem.
That went over like a lead balloon in there.
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Everything is inverted, and the Beatitudes tell it, I think, the most crisply. Everything is sort of the opposite of what you think it's going to be. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. That is true, and you can feel it here. The thing about Charlie's message, I've thought a lot about it, and I'm trying not to be emotional because in addition to everything else, he was a wonderful man and a decent man, and one of those rare people you meet who you just groove with in conversation and have these very intense conversations that you don't stop thinking about, which is my experience with him. But the main thing about Charlie and his message, he was bringing the gospel to the country. He was doing the thing that the people in charge hate most, which is calling for them to repent. So how is Charlie's message different? And Charlie was a political person who was deeply interested in coalition building and in getting the right people in office, because he knew that vast improvements are possible politically, but he also knew that politics is not the final answer. It can't answer the deepest questions, actually. That the only real solution is Jesus. And the reason, it's really simple. Politics, at its core, is a process of critiquing other people and getting them to change. Christianity, the gospel message, the message of Jesus, begins with repentance. Christianity calls upon you to change. Our core prayer given to us by Jesus, the Lord's Prayer, demands that we forgive other people, but preceding that is a request for our forgiveness. In other words, forgive us our sins, meditate on what we've done wrong, how we've fallen short, and then it becomes possible to forgive other people.
I think it's just so powerful. Though he didn't break down and cry, you can see and hear and feel the emotion from him, which is what we lack from anybody that had anything to do with that day, on that day. True, real emotion.
At a loving church, love God, love people, you love people by telling them the truth. And where the modern church has messed up, the church with the homosexual flag, they think the greatest sin is judging. They'll say, well, Jesus says do not judge. The Bible does not say that.
Agreed.
Jesus says do not judge lest you not be judged. Oh, hypocrite, which by the way is a judgment. Jesus was telling us how to judge, not to judge. It is one of the misquoted, most misunderstood scriptures. And instead, what we need to do is we need to talk about the perfect standard that Jesus puts up and how we fall short of it, and that we as the church need to constantly be aiming towards the holiness. Some people say, well, Charlie, I just want to be happy in marriage. No, you don't want to be happy in marriage. You want to be holy in marriage. It's a big difference. Charlie, I just want to live a happy life. You should want to live a holy life, not just a happy life. Holy means separate. Holy means elevated. Holy means that I'm striving towards something that I can't always touch and I can't quite understand. The modern church messes us all up, and they mess up the most important question, destination. Steve crushes this every Sunday. Every Sunday, Steve is doing altar calls. Because the most important question of all the questions, the most important question is not how am I going to pay my mortgage? The most important question is not how much money I have in the bank account. There is one question that matters. It's who is Jesus Christ?
I mean, it sickens me that he was took out because he was so powerful. And he was powerful because he was genuine. He had an ability to get through to youth like nobody else. You're not getting through to the youth the way that they're doing it now. That is not going to happen. It's the complete opposite. And this is Laura here that
Tucker
is,
Carlson is being attacked.
so that's not Laura. I just found him. This guy is going to explain to us who Laura is and what Laura's doing. Like, I know who Laura is, but some of this I did not know. So I kindly paid it forward and said that needs to be investigated. This is a problem. She's in our president's ear.
By Laura Loomer and the entire Israel mafia now, and they're going beyond just criticism. It seems like they're actually trying to put this man in prison. So a lot of you guys might have already seen this clip where he's stating the CIA has been going through his text messages, and Laura Loomer, right-wing political commentator, stated that she was informing and pushing the CIA to take action against him. Now, I was able to do research of my own to find out that Laura Loomer has actually been working with U.S. designated terrorist groups, which I'm going to show you guys in a second. I actually have the full-on document of this. But before I do, I'm going to quickly replay this clip here, and let's talk about it because there's a lot to get into.
Is
We don't need to replay that. We already heard it.
And Laura Loomer, she's legitimately manic. I'm not even saying that to throw a diss at her. She's truly suffers from hypomanic episodes. She can't even own a gun in the United States. This is fact.
True story.
So she would initially criticize him, you know, in large bursts.
So she was Baker acted when she was like 16 or 17 years old. And then there was another incident when she was, I believe, 19, 20. Or no, 2019, where her mental health came into question. So, and that's just, it's proven, it's a fact.
On X. And now it's really started to escalate, especially over the past couple months. And it doesn't matter how you view him politically, there's a massive attack on this man, and it threatens all of us because it's the same Israel mafia. It's the same mafia. So they started increasing this sort of rhetoric, and now, and it's been even a week prior to this past week where Laura Loomer stated she's been investigating and doing a deep dive on Tucker Carlson. They're trying to find anything to pin this man, to put him in prison. To truly, they want to toss him in prison and throw away the key. They want to shut him up, and I am certain that she's working with the Israeli Mossad, or they're working with the Israelis, and they're concocting this plan all together. There's something really sinister going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and it says, Laura Loomer says she reported Tucker Carlson to the Department of Justice for acting as a foreign agent hoping to get him arrested. Loomer has persistently lobbied for Israel and recently defended her shift, started defending India.
And I think you guys know just from watching me, anybody that watches me, I have shown nonstop. She is all day long going after Tucker. And Tucker doesn't never respond, or, you know, she's paid for doing what she's doing. But what he says here and what he's found out, it's concerning. And he reported it. So if you guys are in social media and go on these platforms that he's talking about, you should be on the lookout for it.
Now, and it states here again, you know, we're starting to see all of these Israeli accounts. This is Avi Yamini. He's some pro-Israel shill. And they're all stating the same thing. You might have previously seen this photo of Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump. Now, not just him, several other Israeli accounts, all at the same time, are putting out this false, totally fabricated scenario, totally fabricated. They're stating that this photo is hilarious in hindsight. In hindsight, they're all making it up. They're stating that Trump knew Tucker was talking to Iran. Apparently now, Tucker is talking to the IRGC. Now, apparently Tucker Carlson, the most patriotic white man, like white American, like just homegrown from the beginning of America type of guy, is now working for Iranians. And the people will buy this up. People will buy it up from a guy named Avi Yamini, are going to trust him more about America than Tucker Carlson. This is absolutely ridiculous at this point. So he invites him back to the Oval Office before the strike, knowing he headed to prison. Perfectly played. This whole entire thing is a fabrication. This whole entire thing. You know who else started posting this fabrication? It was that Steinbaum guy. I'm probably going to mispronounce his name. Kristen Steinbaum or Searsenbaum. There's not that many bombs. He's one of them. He's very, very annoying, very irritating. He's also went after Carrie Pergine as well. Kristen Sternbaum or something. The guy who got kicked out of Harvard. Anyway, basically exact same concoction, writing the exact same thing. Now, this is why I say, and I'm very serious about this, Laura Loomer supports U.S. designated terrorist groups. This is not an exaggeration. She supports U.S. designated terrorist groups. And I've previously stated this. It doesn't get enough attention. Laura Loomer consistently supports, and she mentions Kahan Chai. Kahan Chai, there's only one U.S. designated Jewish terrorist group. This is fact. This is part of the DOJ. It's Kahan Chai. They've been listed a U.S. designated terrorist group since the early 2000s, and they've planted bombs in the United States. They've murdered U.S. American citizens. They're an extremist form of Zion. Well, all of Zionism is extremism, but this is a very rabid extremist form of Zionism that takes offensive terrorist attacks. This is an actual U.S. designated group. In 2022, Joe Biden removed their designation from the full terrorist list, and now they're still designated as a special designated global terrorist. And they're sanctioned by the United States, meaning that if you are a U.S. citizen and you try to work or you're affiliated with Kahan High in any way, that is illegal. That is illegal by U.S. law. You are working with a
Laura Loomer has an office at the White House.
special designated global terrorist group. Laura Loomer advocates for Kahan High all the time, all the time. I like Nick and I like Kahan. Meir Kahan, which is the guy who formed the Kahan High terrorist group, and he committed a massive terrorist attack, killing many Muslims, stated Meir Kahan was right about everything. Then he was shot and killed by a Muslim in New York City for being right. We need to bring back the Jewish Defense League, also an alias of Kahan High. Again, illegal. This is all illegal. Armed Jews who don't screw around should be patrolling the streets of America. Bring back the Jewish Defense League in every city. It's time to say F you, never again. I can't overstate this. I'm not just,
She's in our White House. How is that okay? How is this not disturbing? How are they not beating on her door and pulling her text messages and seeing who she's trying to get in touch with?
Joking when I say this. This is illegal. So last year, the Jewish Defense League started creating Instagram accounts. I started seeing random Instagram accounts for the Jewish Defense League. Again, the Jewish Defense League is an alias of Kahan High. And I started reporting, me personally, I started going to the FBI Internet Crimes Filing website. You can go to FBIIC3.gov, and you can actually submit, if you feel like there's an internet crime or there's internet extremism going on, you can actually submit. So I started seeing Jewish Defense League accounts starting popping up. And if you've never seen the Jewish Defense League, it's an actual part of it's an affiliate of a U.S. designated terrorist group. And this is the sanctions list that I've pulled up. And if you've ever seen the Kahan High symbol, it's basically a fist, the same fist you see for the Black Lives Matter, but it's slanted sideways and it has a yellow Star of David behind it. So let me actually pull up a photo so you guys can see this. If you guys meet ever somebody with this symbol, this is a legitimate actual extremist group. This is not a joke. I'm not overstating when I say this. This symbol right over here, this is the Jewish Defense League and Kahan High symbol. This is the Kahan High Jewish Defense League. It's the same symbol. They use the same symbol. This is a U.S. designated terrorist group. So we have to be very clear about that. She supports this group consistently, while at the same time stating that Tucker Carlson is working as a foreign agent. She is consistently supporting Kahan High. Kahan High, not just Kahan High. Here's all of the different branches of Kahan High. This says right here. This is from the sanctions list. You can search this up on the Office of Treasury and Foreign Assets Control. Kahan High Program Special Designated Global Terrorist. And here's all the aliases of Kahan High. Swords of David, Judea Police, Kahan Lives, the Judean Voice, Forefront of the Idea, the Judean Legion, the Way of the Torah, the Yeshiva of the Jewish Idea, Koch, New Koch Movement, Yeshiva Harav Meir, Jewish Idea, Yeshiva. These are all different aliases of a U.S. special designated global terrorist group. These are all different aliases of this. This is live. This is not an old document. This is live. The date of this is today. This is still active. So Laura Loomer could be charged for this. She
Should be.
She could.
Could be and should. It's not could be. She should be. She clearly has messages on her X account inciting this bullshit. And I know personally from being on X, there's plenty of Swords of David and whatnot on there, which makes you think, ugh. So again, they've infiltrated our social media, but they're terrorist groups. This is not okay. And I made it clear, not only to her, but to the White House, that she needs to be investigated. I mean, you're pulling CIA to backdoor Tucker Carlson and violate his privacy, and you got this coop in your ear. I'm telling POTUS on Tucker, and she's inciting violence with people that are known terrorists. It's not okay. It's disturbing. That's something else I wanted to show before I switch to elsewhere. This is Erica. If this right here is Greg Laurie. This is when they gave her the medal for Charlie, but that is Pastor Greg Laurie.
And it's the first time they engraved a cross on the back.
Oh, that's so amazing.
What are you trying to make me cry? Huh?
And somebody that would show more emotion than she does. And this is Pastor Greg Laurie. Make Heaven Crowded tour. He was the prime top guy. One there yet. So he's also, I mean, there's a massive lawsuit and a big thing going on right now for the ties to Romania. And this guy and pastors under him covering up for decades. I believe, if I'm right, it was 1998 to 2008. Don't quote me on that. But it was around there. I'll get it here in a second. But I mean, it's massive. And this is who she picked as her top speaker for Heaven is Crowded tour. And then I go on here and I look more and start researching, and then I see this guy and this guy.
Did I get it?
You crushed it.
I crushed it. See, I doubt myself.
You're doing great.
So it's not. See, what was the
There's
thing your
no
mom said?
fear
It's
in McPherson.
No fear in McPherson.
My mom's line.
That's a good one. Yeah. Because I'm tempted every time.
So this guy right here on the far left is Pastor Driscoll. And this is Pastor McPherson. And then if you go to Ministry Watch, yes, that's a whole place that investigates. And first thing I seen was, boom, right there, Mark Driscoll. This is on and on about Mark's dirty deeds, and there he is in Charlie's office. Sorry, trying to bring up the dude. This is Greg Laurie right here. And it was January of 2026. I know there's even more updated ones than this, but and I have a copy of the whole complaint. It's boring. I mean, I don't mean to say that in light of abuse, but it would be tedious to go through on here. So that was her top speaker. Why do they surround themselves with these people? I mean, there's pastors all over the place. You can surround yourself with good people, or you can surround yourself with people like this. And in my opinion, you're surrounding yourself with people like this because you have shit to hide, and you can't have good people in play if you're surrounded with good people, good pastors that are true. Otherwise, they're not going to go for your bad deeds. It's just not going to happen. And it's just ironic that this guy is in trouble for the Romanian children's homes that she was involved in. I mean, you can't make this up. Can't make it up.
They have no doing, but we're hitting this one. So it's
Well, this is him getting asked about how the war is going.
a little unfair. You know, you win a war, but they have no right to be doing what they're doing. But we're hitting them very hard, and today is a big day where we're pounding a certain area that has very much to do with the strait, and I think we'll get it going very soon. So it's a little unfair. You know, you win a war, but they have no right to be doing what they're doing. But we're hitting.
They have no right to do what they're doing. Fight back. Again, you can't make this shit up.
Coming to the defense of Mark Levin today on Truth Social is extremely troubling because of what he says there. First off, he implies that it's these evil, terrible people that aren't.
Actually, I should probably get to that before we go to that. So, this is our president posted this today. Donald J. And I promise you he did. Mark Levin, a truly great American patriot, is somewhat under siege by other people with far less intellect, capability, and love for our country. Mark is tough, strong, and brilliant, hence the nickname, the Great One. Conceived by our MAGA friend, the wonderful Sean Hannity, after years of dealing with Mark in legal, media, and other capacities, Mark would often do Sean's show, speaking as a lawyer, and Sean realized then, as did others, that he was special. Mark Levin was not looking to do television, radio, or anything else, but he was drafted by very smart people who understood that there are few like him. He is a true conservative and an intellect, far smarter than those who criticized him. But above all, he is a man of great wisdom, common sense, who truly loves our country. When you hear others unfairly attack Mark, remember that they are jealous and angry human beings whose sway is much less than the public understands, and will, now that they know where I stand, rapidly diminish, other than for his wonderful wife and family. Mark Levin only cares and wants one thing: greatness and success for America. Those that speak ill of Mark will quickly fall by the wayside, as do the people whose ideas, policies, and footings are not sound. They are not MAGA. I am, and MAGA includes not allowing Iran, a sick, demented, and violent terrorist regime, to have nuclear weapon to blow up the United States of America, the Middle East, and ultimately the rest of the world. MAGA is about stopping them cold, and that is exactly what we are doing. God bless our great military, which I have rebuilt since the beginning of my first term to achieve everlasting peace through strength. Make America great again. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. Because I don't know how that makes you feel, but when I got on Twitter and seen that, it pissed me off. I thought, of all the things that you could have got on Twitter or X and posted about, you could have maybe informed us or kept us in the know. But what did you do? You got on here and you defended another fucking Jewish person. Because he's being fucking picked on, because he's running his mouth to everybody else that doesn't agree with him. It gets better. So this is Mark. I am beyond humbled by your words and graciousness in writing such a beautiful note and sharing on Truth Social. I'm honored that you took the time to write it. Your courage, strength, and moral clarity are truly unparalleled, and your leadership has made our country and the world much safer. Really. Both you and what you are doing deserve our support, and I will not be intimidated or bow to threats. He's the one doing the threats, man. Through your insight and steady hand, America has been made great again. What? What America are you talking about? It is enormous honor to know that you, as my family, and I do, and call you Mr. President, our friend. You're one of a kind. That's for damn sure. Truly remarkable, and I'll agree with that. So I must not have saved it, but he literally actually got on there and our president made a post on X stating that Mark Levin does not have a micro penis. Because Mark Levin was running his mouth. I believe it was Megyn Kelly that said it to him. And he defended that. That's what you felt the need to get on X and report? How awesome Mark Levin is? What the hell is happening here? Well, naturally, that angered a bunch of people, including Alex,
listing other people
I'm
that are
a big
supposed to
fan
be
of. But
communicated. Well, let's just get one thing straight here. I was around a lot longer than Trump politically, and I've never been MAGA. I'm 1776. I've supported the aims of Make America Great Again so far, but now those definitions are changing. But what Trump's really doing here is attacking his critics. He doesn't want to say, don't attack me in the Iran war. He wants to say, leave Mark Levin alone. He's the litmus test when he's calling for censorship and all the rest of it of people like Tucker Carlson and myself, or I will say that you're not part of our movement. Well, Trump, you don't have to worry about that. People are already very upset with you and already basically understanding that your legacy is being destroyed by you breaking your promise about this war and a lot of the other things you've done, like no real prosecutions of the deep state. So if you want to continue to self-inflict wounds on your own name and own political dynasty, I'm sad about that, but that's your life. You can do it. We're going to stay true to our populist, conservative, nationalist, Christian ideas that you wrote in on, but that we launched. I've been promoting these issues for 30 plus years. Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, and all your darlings were never Trumpers and attacked you. And I've seen Lindsey Graham, say, screw Donald Trump. Donald Trump can go to hell. But that's who you've chosen now, and their worldview more and more. You're ignoring Kennedy, saying we're going to give glyphosate, protection, Roundup, and so many other things you're starting to break with why we voted for you. Now, still, you're better than the Democrats. So I don't hate you. I still promote the good things you do. But when you say...
I'm not sure what good things he's doing. Because I haven't seen anything in a while. Not a big fan of this guy either.
The way Mark Levin talks about this country, he should be deported. Not because you're Jewish, not because
I'm just gonna say he's got a foul mouth. He's very upset, and he's gonna do a lot of
because you're fat, not because you're gay, not because you're a pussy. Mark Levin should be deported because of the way he talks about this country. Where does he get off? The way he says, it's only off the table if we say so. Who the fuck do you think you are? You whiny, grating, odious, disgusting, fat piece of shit traitor. Where do you get off? Damn you. And I apologize for that. As a Christian, we shouldn't curse people, but seriously, damn you. How dare you say that? This is the United States of America. He says, little Adolf, who were his ancestors?
Sometimes he pisses me off so bad, but when he's right, he's right.
You know my ancestors were? Joe Cairo, okay? When my ancestors got here, they kissed the ground when they got off the fucking boat. And they served in the military, and they built this city. They built Chicago. And they love this country. They always have. They're all patriots. They love our country's God, Jesus Christ. They love this country. Who the fuck are you? And why are you here? You love Israel so much. It's not purely about Israel or the Jews. Why are you still here, fatso? Why are you and Randy Fine still here? Need more money, you fucking pissant? Need more money? Need more Americans to bleed for your wars? Need more money to go and kill children? More bullets to shoot innocent people in the back of the head, you fucking coward? And then they try to gaslight us into thinking we're evil. We're not evil. There's a difference. We're self-righteous. This is not anger. This is not evil. This is righteous indignation. This is moral clarity. This is the courage of our convictions. This is righteous indignation of a righteous people. These are the just and reasonable demands of a righteous people. We want our independence. We want our sovereignty. We want a nation under God, the one that we were promised. And we're done being bossed around and abused and insulted and humiliated by these sick people that hate us. Sick people that say we're going to kill 2 million people in Gaza. These sick, arrogant people that have contempt and disdain for the people that they want to exploit for their own interests. That's wrong. That attitude, those ideas, that mindset is wrong. You're wrong for having it, and you should have no influence and no power over us. The way Mark Levin...
I mean, he's obnoxious, but I totally 100% agree with him. And he is a little douchebag sometimes, but he's America first. And he's not wrong. This is what they're doing by doing what they're doing. They're inciting nothing but anger. And it's a real problem. These are your people, and you're going against your own people for Israel. Why? And then, of course, Ambassador Huckabee had to put his 2 cents in. Very nice comments toward a great American, Mark Levin show by Otis. Well said, Mr. President. Well, yeah, because he's the U.S. ambassador over in Israel, but he works for Israel. Then you got Laura to saying, bullshit or not, I still reported Tucker Carlson to the FBI and DOJ and had conversations with senior White House officials about the need for DOJ to modify and revise the FARA memo to combat foreign interference. What qualifies her to make these decisions or have a conversation with the president or DOJ? It's baffling. She has no special skills other than she's supposedly a reporter. That's it.
Have been reporting that their anonymous X users have been reporting that their full names are being searched in Israel. People are going over to Google Trends and they're setting the system to show them Israeli search results. And when they type in their full names, they're finding hundreds, sometimes even thousands of searches. Again, these people are using anonymous accounts on X. So how are they being doxxed? Well, they're being doxxed by X itself. Because X is working with an Israeli tech firm called Authentics, a firm that's founded and staffed by Israeli spies from Unit 8200. And these are the people who are responsible for verifying the identities of X users. And the moment that you verify your identity by signing up for X Premium so that you could actually use the full app, your information is sent off to Israel so that they can track everything that you say and do online. And as these name searches for anonymous X users would suggest, everything that you say and do offline as well. Anonymous X users have been reporting that their full names are being searched in Israel. People are going over to Google Trends and they're setting the system to show them Israeli search results. And when they type in their full names, they're finding hundreds, sometimes even thousands of searches. Again, these people are using anonymous accounts on X. So how are they being doxxed? Well, they're being doxxed by X itself. Because X is working with an Israeli tech firm called Authentics, a firm that's founded and staffed.
Again, I tried to show this the other night in my live stream, and I got cut off. It was called Exposed, and a journalist broke it down. I don't know if anybody got to see it or not, but midstream was cut off because I was trying to show the BB files. They was like, no, not happening. They booted me. And I cannot stress to you guys enough, if you have not seen this, you have got to watch it.
But an eighth front war.
Share it with everybody.
It's
imperative.
Rome and Jerusalem clashed over values with a great tragedy for the Jewish people. Well, we lost that one. We have to win this. But the new Rome, the United States, Jews against Rome.
We stopped playing defense and have moved to offense.
The weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well.
But we need the kind of genius that manufactured Apollo gold pagers and infiltrated Hezbollah for over a decade to prepare for this battle.
But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we engage. And the most important ones are on social media.
Because the next war will be decided based on how Israel and its allies perform online as much as offline.
This is the eighth front, the disinformation campaign.
It is actually this eighth front where enemies believe they can actually defeat the Jewish state.
This is the kind of ingenuity and inventiveness that have always been a hallmark of the state of Israel, that have always been a characteristic of the Jewish people. I know we can do it.
A lot of this is done with money.
Invested billions and billions of dollars in the information battlefield.
Money of NGOs, fast. Money of governments, faster.
We prohibit harmful stereotypes about Jewish people, such as claims that Jews control financial, political, or media institutions.
You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them.
We monitor them online, social media, messaging apps, video games, cryptocurrency.
Hitler admirers, Stalin admirers, Jew haters.
Podcasts, short-form video, Wikipedia, LLM.
American haters, Churchill haters.
We monitor these people and we share the intelligence with the FBI.
You think your stupid little podcast is going to change the world like hell it is?
Social media, this is the new battlefield.
You don't get to wrap your psychotic, mental, unhinged, Nazi.
We do not allow Holocaust denial and distortion.
And the most important purchase that is going on right now is
TikTok.
TikTok, number one.
For every
So if you don't know, TikTok is being ran and monitored by the IDF. That's a fact.
30 minutes that someone watches TikTok, they become 17% more anti-Semitic.
So you have TikTok just smashing our young people's brains all day long with video of carnage in Gaza.
We really have a TikTok problem.
Because anything that we try to say to them, they are hearing it through this wall of carnage, and I sound obscene.
Anti-Zionism
It's just Jew hatred. We made a change
We updated our policies
to designate the use of the term Zionist
to recognize that the term Zionist
as a proxy for a protected attribute
can be used as a proxy for Jews and Israelis.
as hate speech.
Why can't Israel be doing some sort of, counterintelligence,
Right now, the ADL is co-writing Sunday school curriculum.
information warfare like this,
It's building the technology to train the LLMs more effectively.
like psychological operations in America?
As part of a robust framework to combat anti-Semitism, we have industry-leading policies designed with the safety of the Jewish community in mind.
You're right, we control the media. So what are you going to do about it? You're going to bitch on Twitter like, okay. Meanwhile, we're going to control more of the media.
And working with OpenAI, with Alphabet, with Anthropic, with Meta, with Microsoft, we are working with them now to train the LLMs. We also have, I think, over 24 Jewish organizations that are constantly feeding us intelligence and information. So number one, we measure and track. Number two, we monitor and disrupt. We have a whole apparatus. I have 40 analysts working full-time, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, monitoring extremists.
Monitoring campuses, digital networks, activist groups, and public officials.
We have several PhDs on staff. We have a network of academics and scholars we work with around the country.
I've talked to the leaders of AI in the world, and you ask yourself, there's so many blessings in this, but there could be a curse.
First thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model.
We need to invest in intelligence to understand who are the anti-Semites, who's funding them, what's their plans, who are the leaders. And then once we have that, we can define who is an enemy we can attack.
You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your genomic data. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform.
Once we have all this information, we need to empower and mobilize an ecosystem of many organizations that
Saying I heard the music in the background, so I'll probably get striked for that. But this is what they're doing. This is current. They have no problem saying it. If this doesn't concern everybody, I don't know what possibly would. It's terrifying. It's not okay. It's just not okay. So the Stu Peters, the video that I'm going to show, and I don't know if you know who Stu Peters and John Bray, he's on X. I don't think he does YouTube, but they have really broke down. John Bray's been working on this since. He's super smart. Super smart. I'm just going to let it speak for itself.
Of people watched as Charlie Kirk was executed on a live stream in broad daylight in front of a physical audience of 3,000 people or more. And billions of people worldwide have since seen that footage. And from the moment that Charlie Kirk took his last breath, things haven't been adding up, to say the least. The official narrative that we have been sold by our occupied government, the narrative that Erica Kirk and Turning Point USA want each of us to buy, it just doesn't sit right with me. I think I have made that abundantly clear. I know that it doesn't sit right with you. It doesn't sit right with my team here at the network. And it doesn't sit right with countless people who, from the day that Charlie was killed, have been saying, hold on a second. This just isn't adding up. They tell us that Charlie Kirk was shot through the neck with a .30-06 by a trans-chasing, furry-loving reject called Tyler Robinson, a guy who, like Spider-Man, scaled the side of a building completely undetected with thousands of people present, assembled a rifle with his screwdriver, took his shot, disassembled the rifle with the same screwdriver, shoved it down his pants, jumped off the roof like a supervillain, landing on his feet, and then escaped completely undetected, before leaving a pile of evidence full of other people's DNA in the nearby woods, and then making multiple so-called confessions, and then ultimately, of course, turning himself into authorities.
And not cooperating.
They say that Tyler Robinson was a lone wolf. He woke up one morning, and because of Charlie Kirk's stance on transgenderism, Tyler Robinson decided that that was the day that Charlie Kirk had to die. But we all know that that's bullshit. Anyone who has spent 3 or 5 minutes keystroking on the internet looking into this case can plainly see that Charlie Kirk was betrayed by the people closest to him. They can see that this wasn't some kind of a lone wolf attack that killed Charlie Kirk, but instead, it was a high-level, likely military operation spanning multiple agencies, spanning multiple countries that killed Charlie Kirk. Now, we have honed in on the places like Fort Huachuca and UVU. We've honed in on the people like Erica Kirk and Cabot Phillips and Brian Harpole and Blake Neff and Mikey McCoy and Rob McCoy and Andrew Kovic. We've talked about meetings that preceded Charlie's death, like the one at Fort Huachuca the day before, like the Zionist intervention at Bill Ackman's mansion in the Hamptons. And it was at that meeting where Benjamin Netanyahu phoned in offering Charlie hundreds of millions of dollars in exchange for being a pro-Israel shill. And we all know what happened. Charlie rejected the offer. Charlie turned him down. He could no longer stand with the pro-Israel cause that, in his own words, he wrote that he would be forced to leave.
I also put the link to this, or at least it should be in the description. So if anybody wants to go look at this video, you can. And plus, he's got a lot of other videos. And he's actually working side by side with John Bray on the conclusion.
Leave. So he ended up dead. And when Charlie Kirk died, it wasn't a bullet from a 30-06 that took his life. It was an exploding microphone. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the murder weapon, because in the case against Tyler Robinson, which is being used, by the way, to cement the government narrative, the murder weapon is everything. For Tyler Robinson to have killed Charlie Kirk, he would have had to have shot him in the neck with a 30-06, leaving no exit wound. But that didn't happen. A 30-06 did not kill Charlie Kirk. What killed Charlie Kirk was an exploding tempered glass, black, road-branded lavalier microphone. There was no bullet tangled up in the neck bones of steel of Charlie Kirk, as Andrew Kovic would have you believe. Instead, the microphone that you could easily see beneath Charlie's shirt blew up, and when it did, it turned tempered glass into shrapnel, which was documented both at the scene of the assassination itself and in the vehicle that Charlie's dead body was transported in. There was tempered glass all over the floor of that vehicle because when the microphone blew up, pieces of shrapnel clung to Charlie's shirt. Pieces of shrapnel got caught up all over his skin and went with him into that SUV. And that doesn't happen to a microphone on the right side of his chest if he's shot in the left side of his neck. And what also doesn't happen is what we saw the moment that Charlie Kirk hit the ground. That blood that was pouring out of his neck, actually while he was still in the chair, that blood from the wound that was created as that microphone blew up, it came from his brain. Now, just last evening, I spoke with an advanced surgeon, a neurosurgeon, a trauma brain surgeon. This is a person who operates on people who have gunshot wounds to the head, who fall from an elevated position down onto the ground and they hit their head. They have trauma to the head. They have brain bleeds. They have brain damage. These are the people who intervene on an emergency basis.
I'm going to skip him forward to when John Bray gets on here.
The frames of cameras. It was in between the shutter speeds of the camera. So the only type of explosive force that can create that sort of speed is military grade high explosives. We're not talking about some handcrafted, homemade bomb. This was a military grade high explosive, just like we saw in the Grim Beeper attacks in Lebanon. And they used a modified electronic device with an arm.
We've had to modify this microphone a little bit. We've had to remove a little bit of the rubber. We've had to shift the battery down. They might not even go into detail about exactly what it was that they did. And then they show the demonstration to these people who then make the decision to sign off on this. They say, yep, that looks great.
You hear a rifle shot, you see a shirt move, you see a guy fall over dead. I mean, it's a very easy story to convince most people.
Maybe a little bit of blood in the front, not a whole lot, but you wouldn't see a whole lot from a 30 over
and over again.
I'm sorry,
on Fort Huachuca is what I believe. That's where
I skipped past the Fort Huachuca part. So this is where the testing they're saying was done and why they were seen at Fort Huachuca. Brian Harpole and Erica most likely to sign off on is what they're saying. And this is allegedly. But sure makes a whole lot more sense than Tyler Robinson being up there doing it.
This device had an ARM processor in it. It had a microphone. Everything they needed to basically recreate that Lebanon attack was in that microphone. So, you're left with the only logical conclusion you're left with to explain the shirt deformation, the necklace snapping, and the physical evidence that we see is that the microphone exploded. There's no way you can explain those combination of events with a rifle shot to the neck.
Do you think that this went off exactly as they had planned, or do you think that there were unaccounted for variables that that took place here? Were there things, were there accidents? Were there things that didn't go exactly according as planned, in your opinion?
Well, absolutely. This level of event, they would have ran simulations over and over again.
On Fort Huachuca is what I believe. That's where they were testing this microphone.
Absolutely.
They were testing the explosive. That's what they do on Fort Huachuca.
And anybody that was involved with the conspiracy, they would show them the replication of it, and they would be confident that it would look convincing enough, like a rifle shot to the chest, that it would be an easy sell. And
So
to
they
be
might
honest
bring somebody like Erica Kirk and Brian Harpole to Fort Huachuca to say, hey, here's what we have tested X amount of times. We believe that we have this perfected. We've had to modify this microphone a little bit. We've had to remove a little bit of the rubber. We've had to shift the battery down. They might not even go into detail about exactly what it was that they did. And then they show the demonstration to these people who then make the decision to sign off on this. They say, yep, that looks great.
You hear a rifle shot, you see a shirt move, you see a guy fall over dead. I mean, it's a very easy story to convince most people.
Maybe a little bit of blood in the front, not a whole lot, but you wouldn't see a whole lot from a 30-06. I would believe that. If there was not a neck wound, I would have believed that entire story. Nobody would have.
So that is what they tested countless times for at Fort Watch, in my opinion. And I think it has something to do with the Tennessee explosion, because it all makes sense, but they did not count on more than one wound. They tested for this. They tested. Everything worked out according to plan, and then it went wrong. They did not anticipate a piece of it. I mean, it just everything lined up the way that it needed to be for this to be. Otherwise, we'd all just accepted the fact that they're saying he got shot with a 30-06 in the chest. That's what the intent was. In my opinion, this was God's way of, Charlie slumping slightly forward while he was answering the question. It just, everything lined up to where when that explosion went off, that piece of that battery went in, caused a neck wound, and it was an oh shit moment for all of them. Literally. They had no idea, like, that was not planned for. How are we going to explain this?
Been asking questions.
No, I would have never looked at it twice. If they told me that Charlie was shot in the chest and he didn't have that neck wound, I wouldn't looked at it twice. I would have just went on with my life. But when I saw the shirt move and I saw the neck wound, I saw the strange bleeding from it, I saw his physical reaction, none of those factors added up to me. And my mind couldn't leave it alone. I kept working through the variables of how to try to explain it. And the more I looked, the more it became obvious that, the only explanation you could come up with was the microphone. It's the only thing that was possible that could be, the not all the components needed to pull that operation off were in that microphone.
What have you done with this microphone as you have been trying to recreate all of this?
So basically, I found the microphone's an older model. So I found the exact model that Charlie wore that day.
I got 4 more of them down the hall in the other studio. If you want access to more of them, you can blow those up.
Yeah, I found the exact model because they changed different features of them, like the glass front. They got rid of the glass front. They changed it to polycarbonate front because the glass shatters. It's an easy thing to shatter, and it's sharp when it shatters. It's a liability on their part. And so I disassembled that microphone. I've scanned it into CAD, got all the dimensions. I took the basically the Bible of shape charges, the fundamentals of shape charges. I used all the formulas in there to recreate the size, shape, and power of the shape charge. And I found a way to make it fit inside the case while still having it fully functional. So the only thing I'm lacking now is getting the actual shape charge 3D printed and finding a source of that high energy explosive, which is difficult. It's not something that's really.
This guy is like super, super smart. So when he first came out, he was a little bit awkward talking on camera, and his affect was a little bit different, but you could tell that he was super smart, and he's really come full circle as far as his personality and getting on camera and talking. But he also, I don't know if you know his history, but he was in the military, and he has expertise in military ballistics, like their vests and all that. But he didn't just come up with this on a whim. He ran every computer program test. I mean, he's just uber smart.
Available. Worst case, I can replace it with a lower power explosive and I'll just have to use most of it. But I'll have to modify the case further. It may not be fully functional in that case, but it will still represent, you know, the physical characteristics we saw. We'll be able to replicate that accurately. But hopefully someone to come forward brave enough that has access to these explosives that, you know, will supply the 2 grams that I need to replicate it. And we'll just run it over and over again. Right now I'm running simulations in AI. I had to buy a brand new computer just to run it because it's pretty complicated physics. But luckily, the people have been very generous in supporting us, and I've been able to use the funds that we've been able to scrape together, and I'm buying the things necessary to not only run the simulations but to do the replication of it. I just bought ballistics gel to recreate the neck. The neck wound is going to be something that I'll recreate first. It's easier, it's lower hanging fruit. I've done it before in a crude matter, but I'm going to create a exact replica of a human neck and recreate the neck wound.
So wait a minute. The ballistic busts that people are using and they're shooting, you can't just use that. Why is that?
The ballistic gel doesn't have the properties of flesh. It's made to simulate the penetration potential of a projectile. So if you see it move, it jiggles and shakes. It has nothing that contains its kind of elasticity. So when it's impacted, it stretches and bubbles out a whole lot. And that's why you see these slow-mo videos of something getting impacted. It looks ridiculous. Like a balloon blows up and then it slaps back down. And that's not how human flesh reacts. So I have bacteriocellulose, which is the best analog for actual human epidermis, and I've grown it to the same thickness as neck tissue, and we're going to wrap the ballistic gel in that, and that'll basically create the same potential of penetration, kind of like the replication of the penetration, but it will withhold that stretching ability and give you a much more realistic surface reaction of the flesh. And then what most importantly, it'll give you the shape of the wound accurately.
What about the posture? Does that matter? Charlie
Yeah.
Kirk had just basically said he was, you know, putting the microphone forward.
Absolutely. Not only
agree with me that it was the back.
So obviously I'm not going to be able to show some of it is not YouTube friendly and they'll just kick me. I'm already on the no list, so they're just waiting for me to show something.
Kirk assassination. He's got the body, the bust elevated. You know, again, this is one of these ballistic gel busts, and he has been running countless tests. But like you, he has struggled to get his hands on military-grade explosives. They're hard to get your hands on, and they're extremely dangerous to work with. So he's using other kinds of means for incendiary, you know, reaction. But okay, so you can see the battery or an object that looks and is the same color as and is the exact same dimensions as the battery in this Rode microphone come out of the wound. You can see it fall out of the wound.
Yeah.
How did it get there? Show us how it got there.
So basically, you have the battery and the microphone is mounted underneath the collarbone, and it's mounted in a kind of like a 45-degree fashion. So kind of, you know, actually like this. And so when the first movement of the shirt you see in the maps, it violently lifts the shirt up here. And so it extends from the body. So his shoulders are already forward, which brings the angle kind of the shoulder around. So you can see the trajectory, how it changes from here to here, how it brings it forward. So it can reach the neck on this side. And when your arms are forward like that, it pulls you see perfect. It pulls your, and so, you know, the only way you can explain these characteristics is a medium velocity blunt impact. And the type of physical reaction that he has, you see his arms come up and his hands come in and his knees come together. That's showing you that reactions from falling and hitting the ground. He hit the ground like a mannequin, you know, it was just dead weight. You can't fake that sort of thing. If he had any sort of brain function, he would have tried to brace himself. So, you know, Charlie.
And he's actually showing, you can see the the back part that came up in the shirt and made the shirt come up like it did. And then he actually shows in the video where you can see it fall. And before he falls, well, Dan pushes him over. It falls down into his shirt.
Was well dead before the neck wound even.
Where a lot of murders happen, by the way. That's what this person does for a living. And what he told me is that every single brain surgeon, every single level 1 trauma surgeon, any doctor really who's trained in emergency medicine knows when they look at this, that was brain blood, that was blood that came from Charlie Kirk's brain, and it didn't come from the heart. It didn't come from the circulatory, vascular system. It came from the brain. And that's why you see this non-oxygenated, coagulated, really dark blood. And that have gone way. That's what broke the seal, pushed the battery out, and it gave an exit for the blood to travel out of. And they also said that Charlie Kirk was immediately dead. They said that this blast, it appears, created brainstem trauma that immediately incapacitated his brain, and it killed him. It wasn't the loss of blood that killed him. It wasn't shock. It wasn't anything other than the brain basically blowing up, essentially. I mean, I'm not a doctor, and for a lack of scientific vocabulary, I'll just say that's what he was trying to communicate to me, is that the brain was like immediately incapacitated, shut off. He was dead right there from the trauma that was created to his brain, caused that bleed. And that's what we saw. It was the entry wound, and it was the exit passageway for the blood to come out of. Do you think they picked up the battery as well? I mean, we saw the security team, and I'm asking you to speculate here. I want to get back into like the actual what you're doing here, but it's hard not to think about all of this stuff playing out, as we talk about these things. Do you think that that's what they were doing on the ground down there? They were scrambling around, picking up the battery, picking up pieces of the lavalier microphone?
Yeah, you can see the whole security team. They had a detail of, they were going around with their heads down, kicking at the grass. There's only one reason that you would do that. They're looking for every bit and fragment that they can find from that microphone. They can't leave one piece of shrapnel behind. And that's why they had to come and pull up the grass, because they would never be able to completely clean that grass up. One piece of shrapnel getting tested for explosive residue would unfold the whole conspiracy. So they couldn't leave anything behind. That's why the SUV got sold off in auction after it got
Nating the microphone. To me, that's what I think. That's my opinion. Do you agree with that, or do you think that this was detonated from elsewhere?
The detonations is hard to pinpoint. If it was my operation, I wouldn't depend on a person to detonate it.
In my opinion, Brian Harpole is the one that detonated it, because there's plenty of video of them messing with the sound. There's plenty of video of the sound guy bracing and staying ducked down. And there's plenty of video of Brian Harpole walking over to Dan Flood with adjusting something in his pocket. That's just my opinion, and it seems to be the consensus of everybody else. John Bray is not going to say that because he's a tech guy. He doesn't really care who did it. He just knows it was done.
Would use the hardware to detonate it. But I think
Stu's inferring that it might have been Rick Cutler, which is creepy dude with the brown shirt. But I mean, he is doing a weird arm signal. But I don't think it was that.
But the video of him is telling, because he doesn't look shocked at all until he sees the blood erupt from the neck, and you just see it all over his face. It's a oh shoot moment. Something's gone awry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can read his face.
That wasn't supposed to happen. That's the look that's.
Yep. And that's when you see the whole crew stand over his body after they get him on the ground. They all kind of just sit there and look at each other, and of getting hit, by a stray bullet. But when they saw that blood come out, you could see it all over their faces. And even Dan Flood, he threw Charlie to the ground. He didn't gently. It was like, get him out of sight. He basically threw him out of the chair to the ground as fast as possible, because every second as people saw that blood erupting from the neck was a second that they couldn't undo. It was the undoing of their whole operation. As soon as that battery struck his neck, thing from the neck was a second.
It was. If it wasn't for that battery hitting his neck and them going with the 30 odd 6 story, I don't think any of us would have questioned anything. But I think the fact that we all have, you know, eyes to see and common sense, it clearly did not happen the way that the, well, you can't even say FBI anymore because they claim it's not their case, but yet in court last Friday, the prosecutors are still waiting for evidence from the FBI. This is nothing but a shit show. And sadly, who knows what's going to happen to Tyler Robinson.
That they couldn't undo. It was the undoing of their whole operation as soon as that battery struck his neck.
Did you notice anything peculiar or different? And in your research, have you looked back to try to figure out who is it normally that's charged with the responsibility of attaching that lavalier microphone to Charlie? And was anything different on 910?
The way they mounted it was weird. I looked at the whole history of the microphone, trying to decipher what model it was. And you can kind of see, like, as the season goes along, you know, when they first buy it, he's in like summer clothes and they're mounting it, you know, on the outside of his shirt. And then, you know, he goes to a long sleeve t-shirt. They mount it on the inside of his shirt, but they mount it in kind of like a peculiar fashion, kind of in the center of his chest. And then by the time winter comes around, you see him starting to mount it more in the fashion that you see, but it's always mounted kind of flat. That day they mounted it on its side, which I always thought was really weird. Like Charlie was even messing with it. It was obviously uncomfortable to him because it's constantly
Right
kind of
there,
like
that
trying
guy's
to lay
mounting it.
flat. But they mounted it on its side because they needed the depth of that device for the shape charge to be able to point towards his chest. It's too shallow of a device to have that shape charge, you know, be mounted flat, the microphone be mounted flat on his chest and it be able to shoot the charge towards his chest. So that day it had to take, you know, a great effort to mount it in that way. It's not, I have the microphone, I have the magnetic clamps. It's not easy to mount it that way. It's not easy to get it to stay that way. So, you know, if you look at the reaction of the guy that mounted that microphone on him too, he literally is hiding behind the table the whole time. Where you look at all the other videos, he's doing his AI, you know, his audio video thing, standing up behind the table. He's walking around. That day, he's hunched behind the table the whole time. And seconds before the rifle round goes off, he looks away like he couldn't bear to see it happen. And immediately they run off. And the other AV guy is the guy that goes behind the concrete wall and says, "They killed Charlie. They killed Charlie." You know, they haven't even gotten Charlie into the SUV yet. And he's recording a video, a selfie video of "they killed Charlie." You know, it's just, you can't explain it. They didn't even get a good look at Charlie. There's no way that they could even know that he got hit by anything, but yet he's come to the determination that they shot Charlie, they killed Charlie. You can't discount that level of reaction from someone that had direct, you know, hands on. They were handling that microphone. They had to put that microphone in that certain position. And then they're acting in this sort of way, like they already knew that Charlie was dead before they even laid eyes on the impact that he suffered that day. You just add all these factors together and it becomes apparent that there was a conspiracy within Turning Point to use the people in and around Charlie to set him up for this event.
Some of these other podcasters, these special weapons and tactics, military operators, they've kind of let this go. They have nowhere to go on this because nobody has been able to reproduce, replicate, or recreate the trauma that was created by the battery out of the lavalier microphone at Charlie's neck. How are you going to be able to do that? If this was a mistake, if this
2,000 people, they ran it enough to say that, you know, there's a very low probability of shrapnel hitting his neck. So that's why I'm running the simulations, trying to get all the factors perfect before I start, you know, blowing through ballistic dummies and microphones. But, you know, I imagine it's going to take multiple runs. But what won't take multiple runs is replicating the shirt deformation. Every single one of those runs will replicate that shirt deformation. So, you know, even though we won't get the
could they be two separate, you know, kind of demonstrations where one, you have the way that it was supposed to work and it'll show the reaction of the shirt. And then two, you simply put a battery at that velocity, which I'm sure that your advanced AI technology will be able to detect the velocity, right, which the battery moved with. Would you be able to just emit that kind of energy behind a battery into a neck or something consistent with Charlie Kirk's neck to show the penetration? How far would you estimate that?
But the two things, they work together in conjunction. You replicate, we know the angle, that the trajectory, we know the speed, we know the size, so we can replicate the neck wound without the explosion. That's easy. That's the first thing I'm doing. I should have that done soon. The explosion is trickier because there's a lot more variables involved. You have high explosives involved, but even without the battery impact, the explosion will be able to replicate the shirt deformation, and being able to map that and replicate that movement, especially the speed of the movement, that will be it's worth its weight in gold. Basically, just that alone disproves the rifle impact, because without the neck wound replication, the rifle
So right there, you can actually see it actually trying to come out of the top of the shirt right there.
impact
And
still
this
can't
guy,
explain
he's a genius.
the necklace snap. They'll off Tyler in jail and hope that everyone just moves along to the next story.
If they kill Tyler Robinson, that doesn't change the fact that we can complete the investigation into what killed Charlie Kirk, and I would expect that you won't stop.
No.
If they killed Tyler Robinson, I would expect that you'd probably go just as hard, if not even more fervently than you are right now.
Yeah,
if it's this difficult to get your hands on this explosive, do you know what grade of explosives were used? How would they compare to fireworks? Could alternate explosives be used?
Yeah, fireworks are a subsonic explosion, so it would be like trying to replicate the 30-06 impact with a pellet gun. It's just not as fast as your military or high explosives.
Do you know the speeds?
Yeah, I know the speeds exactly. I can replicate it with a few different explosives. One that I can actually get that's about 20% slower, but it would still replicate it at supersonic speeds. It would be close enough that I could just put 20% more explosives in the charge and get the same effect. So there is an absolute binary explosive that I'll be able to source and replicate it. And it's not restricted, but I would much rather someone assist me and come forward with the high explosives that were more than likely used in the device. That way we can, have a much more solid case of the shape charge fitting in a functional device and creating all the physical characteristics that we saw that day.
Who would be somebody that could get their hands on that?
Anybody in oil and gas that does fracking or well drilling. It's what they use to basically drill through hard layers of rock when they're drilling an oil well. When they reach a point where their drill can't penetrate anymore, they basically send a shape charge down and it blows a hole through the rock. And that's how accurate these shape charges are. It doesn't destroy the well that they made. They need a very clean hole, but it'll blow a hole right through a hard substance in any direction that you want. So you hear about them drilling like directional wells, sideways wells. This is how they do it. They just send a shape charge down the pipe basically, and they can blow through whatever's in the way, whatever obstacle they have.
What modifications were made to the microphone in order to be able to fit this amount of explosives inside of it? Have you been able to determine exactly how they kind of configured this microphone that was used to kill Charlie?
Yeah, absolutely. I put the microphone internals into a CAD program and basically ran the dimensions of the formulas that I ran from the fundamentals of shape charges, and I was able to determine that by just moving a few millimeters of the rubber surround that kind of like held the battery in place, you could slide the battery up in the case and leave more than enough room for the shape charge to sit diagonally. And it wouldn't affect the function of the microphone at all. It would function just as a regular microphone. And you can see it almost gives the USB port there as a hole in the side. And it almost gives a exit for the shape charge where it doesn't have to blow through the case completely. It just blows through the back of the USB port, and the case already has a hole there for it. And the battery normally sits kind of in that spot, but if you remove the rubber surround, you can turn the battery 90 degrees and it fits perfectly underneath the shape charge. And I think that's why we see the battery and the the circuit board sits on top of it, and we see it accelerated out so fast because that shape charge had to impact the USB port first. And so kind of like the deflection of it penetrating the USB port
Put it back up.
is what energized the circuit board and the battery to fly across his chest, because it had to blow through that small metal, kind of clip that holds the USB port in place, and then the outside of the case. So that's what gives us the shattered the glass front, and the circuit board and the battery flying across his chest were from that deflection of that shape charge kind of happened to blow through the case where they had it concealed.
Was there supposed to be a projectile that was emitted? Was there supposed to be a projectile that entered his body, or was it just the explosion itself that was supposed to take him out?
I think they designed a shape charge to replicate a 30-6 impact. So, they could impact to the chest. You could believe that a 30-6 impact to the chest may have not have exited. That it didn't, especially.
So, because I had to skip through. I mean, he shows such a detailed, and I don't know, I don't think he has a YouTube, so if you don't have X, he's mainly on X, but he goes into every section that he has completed. He is so detailed, and he gives every test run he's done, every analysis, all the data that he has put in. He step by step. I mean, this guy is phenomenal. But I do believe he's only on X, unless you find him on other people's videos. But I highly recommend you go over and check him out on X, because he gives constant updates, and you'll see that the end result is when they have everything and it's ready. He has contacted Tyler Robinson's defense attorneys. He plans on making a thorough plan and submit it.
When we see the amount of energy that was kind of dumped into his body, you could say that maybe the bullet, fragmented and got caught in his chest. So I think that they were banking on just replicating a small hole in his chest and having it be, kind of ambiguous enough that even a trained medical staff would look at it and be like, yeah, that's a rifle impact to his chest. We didn't find the bullet. Or they plant a bullet, JFK style. But when you have a neck wound that's so apparent, you kind of have to abandon that narrative. And I think that's why the scramble and the weird happenings with the medical examiners and the kind of the happenings at the hospital, bringing in JD Vance, all that was the audible that they had to pull to kind of pull off the single shot to the neck narrative. They had to clean up the whole medical side of it, where they had a pretty clean path before. If they just had a wound in his chest and we saw, the shirt deformation and we saw no neck wound, it would be pretty believable to most people that he was shot in the chest.
There's another picture that you have on your X page that I want to pull up here. Pull up that one that has the actual, where's the one that has you can see the multiple shots of the neck wound and the shirt and the lavalier microphone. Yeah, that's the one right there. Click on that one. Put that up on the screen. What is this? Explain for the viewing audience what they're seeing here and what they should pay attention to.
So basically what you're seeing in that top corner picture, you can see the circuit board actually sticking out of the shirt collar, where that shirt collar on his left side was pulled up around his face. That's the edge of the circuit board actually almost escaping his shirt collar, where it was done with enough momentum that it pulled his shirt collar up and almost flung out of it, but it was pulled back down and fell down to his shirt. And it actually left some residue on the shirt collar. And then this other picture is the battery, how it's connected to the circuit board.
And if you can see that right here where the bullseye is, that is actually the residue from the circuit board.
If you crack the case open of that battery, that's kind of what you're left seeing is medium velocity.
Immediately after that, there you go. And when you shoot a deer, you don't see that residue on the fur of the deer. When you go to gut the deer, when you go to drag the deer, when you approach the deer, you don't see that incendiary residue that you saw in those other pictures that we just previously showed. And you can see, look at the reaction there. You can see the neck chain. And look at
you
there. You could see
the
that.
shockwave of his flesh.
Yeah.
His whole flesh is deformed. You can see the shockwave across his hair blows. It's like the amount of energy that was displaced through his body was so dramatic. Like you said, it basically turned his brain to liquid. You know, the shockwave liquefied his brain. He basically had mid and brain stem damage immediately before any neck wound appears. Charlie was dead seconds after these frames appeared. As soon as that shirt raises up, Charlie was dead. That we're seeing the moments that Charlie was killed.
Yeah,
right
you're
here.
talking milliseconds. I mean,
Absolutely.
he immediately was killed by the trauma that was created here. And that's not according to Stu Peters. That's according to a level 1 trauma surgeon in an emergency department on the East Coast in a big city where a lot of trauma happens, who operates specifically on the brains of people who come into this level 1 trauma center who have brain bleeds, brain trauma, brain injuries of any kind, and he goes in to try to save their lives. I would say that this guy probably knows what brain blood looks like. And that explains a lot of things. Other than the blood coloration, I'm sure that you have had a lot of detractors. I'm sure that there's been people who have come at you and said, well, your theory can't work because this. Or, well, everything looks great here, John, except for X, Y, and Z. What have been some that have challenged you personally where you've thought to yourself, man, do I really have this wrong?
Well, you know, when you first examine it, a lot of them have merit, but when you kind of combine all the factors together, there's not one objection that I've heard from some.
I love that he's never questioned, not once. He has been confident in his work, and from day one, he has never questioned it.
Someone that explains all the phenomenon. You can whataboutism about one detail or another, but when you really combine all the realities of what we saw, all the physical reactions, all the physical evidence that was, you know, laid waste and left behind, there's no other explanation that you can use to explain it. You know, from shooters from behind, from drone shots, you know, they all require a impact, a rifle impact or a bullet impact. We don't have that. You know, other shooters from the crowd, you have 3,000 people. You don't think that one of those people may have noticed that someone was shooting a gun? Or
Someone
shooting a
standing
projectile
right
bomb?
next to them or right near them or up above them or on a rooftop in broad daylight where there are cameras mounted like a mini super surveillance state everywhere that you look? Yeah. And they could put the whole thing to bed. Why can't they just show us the video of Tyler Robinson taking the kill shot?
Yeah. Or show us the 4K video that was feet away from Charlie. Or you know,
or let us hear the audio from that Rode lavalier microphone that he was wearing.
Exactly. And, you know, people will run audio analysis from these cell phones and say that they can prove a rifle shot came from here, there, or they can prove that they didn't hear a explosive device. But, you know, this 2-gram explosive device would be no louder than a firecracker. Like that.
Which, unironically, you can go through and bring up countless news reports of 50, 60 people. All the consensus of every single one of these people was they thought it was a firecracker. We thought we heard a firecracker. Firecracker, firecracker, firecracker. One right after another. They were made to believe it was a firearm or a gunshot after. Their first instinct was firecracker.
That rifle shot would have been the perfect cover for it all. Like I said, this was a well-planned, orchestrated thing. They knew from prior events that people were going to be running audio analysis of everything, and they had everything perfectly timed where there would be no way for you to say one way or another. You know, it's always every person that does analysis has a different conclusion. So, you know, they never get anywhere with it. It never amount to hard evidence. It's not physical evidence. You know, it's a low energy event. So, you know, it's just, if anything, it just muddies the water. If we just look at the actual physical energy that we see displaced, that's going to lead us to what happened. You can ignore all the rest. It can be supporting evidence, but it's not going to distract from the actual physical, you know, energy that we saw displaced. And the shirts don't move like that naturally. Certainly not from a rifle impact.
Where are you at in the process? And how far do you have to go? And what kind of a time frame to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish? And what is this for? What is your benchmark for success? What do you hope that your investigation and that your analysis and that your findings prove, and to whom?
So I'd say I'm about 30 days out from being able to replicate at least the neck wound, the neck impact. I'll be able to replicate the explosives is trickier because of the nature of the high explosives, right? I can blow up the microphone with explosives I can get, but it won't replicate exactly what we saw. It'll give us a really good idea of the type of deformation we could expect. But the neck wound, I can absolutely nail. So that's my first goal is replicate the neck wound. And my end goal is to provide this evidence to everyone. We can't expect these public defenders to do Tyler Robertson justice, and solve the obvious conspiracy that's been laid before us. But we can use these tools that are available to us now. Average person can run more analysis and do more forensic analysis with cited resources and the power of anything that the state has available to them, and do it more competently than a public defender. So I'm looking at it as building a defense case against the official narrative, and I'm going to release everything that I find in that format. Strange rectangular.
Out to the test site when it's time, when you're ready.
Absolutely. That's the plan. When we get it dialed in and I know I can replicate it over and over, we're going to use your platform to make this available to everyone. And this is what we have to do. This is what we're
I hope
left with
Candace
in this
invites
country.
you on. I really hope that maybe Candace would join us.
Hey,
I'll send her the
Candace has
invite. I'll
been-
tell her, Baron
she is
Coleman,
getting
these
the-
guys have been at the forefront of this. They have platforms. We have different audiences. She has the massive audience. She's got the #1 podcast in the world. It would be great if Candace Owens would be there with us to document all of this so that she could see it firsthand and have you on with her to explain all of this.
She has been
I think
key,
that would do this a whole lot more justice.
Yeah, she's been giving me breadcrumbs little bit by little bit. Like, she feeds me information, and it's been key. The fragmentation. There's been a few other things that I'm not
The
ready to talk
pictures
about.
of the black tempered glass and the remains of that microphone inside of the SUV, that was really big. Her testimony about the blood that she did not see behind Charlie Kirk in the footage that she was allowed to see. Why don't they just show us that?
Yeah, exactly. And I understand she's under a lot of pressure. She has the #1 podcast. There's things she can't say, but what she
Go
can't
kill her.
say, what she can't say, I will say. So if I can do anything but just be an extension for her and allow her to unveil these things that she's not comfortable with doing, I'm happy with doing that. But it's been key. Everyone working. It's a community effort. We can see with this Epstein thing, like, the government will just lie to us, and they will just expect us just to bend over.
What do you
and
mean?
take it.
I've learned today that Donald Trump was.
Okay, we're not going to play that part because he gets kind of foul mouthed, and even John Bray was a little disturbed by it. There was really nothing left. He just goes on a self-rant about, what do you mean? Donald Trump's only in the FBI files because or the Epstein files because he was an FBI informant. And then, of course, he had a lot of other foul shit to say about it. Rather not hear it again. So yes, if you have not seen that full video, or you don't even have to go back to watch that video, if you just simply go find John Bray on X, you will actually see his entire analysis broke down from start to finish, from the day he started all the way up until now. That video, I mean, he should be close to having everybody there to do the final analysis. And he is 100% confident that this is the way it went down. So I highly suggest that everybody go check out his channel, because he literally shows all the programs and the analysis and just how it all fits. So John Bray on X, and like I said, I don't think he's on YouTube unless he's gotten at YouTube since last time I seen him on there. Great guy. He is doing all this out of the goodness of his heart and trying to help spread the truth, for one. And it blows my mind when people on X, in particular the TPUSA crew, are like, you people are crazy, you know, all nuts. And then, you know, you send them videos of like, I mean, dude, come on. Tyler Robinson is guilty. What happened to innocent until proven guilty? So you wouldn't even be saying that. And number one, none of them should be even talking if they were there and they're part of the case. They're terrified. And I think it's just like they said, my opinion, allegedly, they did not anticipate the neck wound. They anticipated the explosion to go off, it to be under the shirt, and it to look like a 30-06. Explanation done. Nobody asked any questions. It went wrong. It shot up into his neck. And here we are. And thankfully so. Not thankfully he is gone, but thankfully the neck wound happened, and hopefully innocent people don't get put to death and guilty people pay for what they did. They executed him. They took him out. They let him build his TPUSA, his organization. They let him build it to the greatest thing it could be. And then took him out. And is totally using his organization to do exact opposite of everything and anything he would have ever believed in, ever. And nobody can tell me any different. That's my opinion. But that's all I have for tonight. So hope everybody has a good rest of your night. And I will see you again next time. Till then, good night.